By the way, you look unbelievably beautiful tonight. You're practically glowing.
Damn, look at my fucking forehead.
Yo, I hit the jeweler, got some goals. I sold a little weed, but I could never sell my soul. And when I'm in LA, you find me out in Lil Toke. I'm a vocal with my ramen, I'ma need another blow. Let's go.
Disclaimer, I am not a furry. And why would you think that I am? I pre-order Call of Duty every year. However, I have been thinking about the criticisms towards my Alpha and Omega reviews. Mainly the ones that say that I hate the movies because they're furry movies. Which ironically got me thinking about movies that I love that are quote-unquote furry projects. This was combined with a film that I actually watched recently for the first time. A film that I bought the Criterion Blu-ray of and fell in love with. This film is, of course, Wes Anderson's phenomenal stop-motion classic, Fantastic Mr. Fox. This film follows the main character, Mr. Fox, played by George Clooney.
Rap, woo, woo, woo. So, hip-hop, rap, hippity-hop, hip-hop, root.
The film deals with the main character going through a bit of a midlife crisis, secretly trying to live his old days of crime. This leads to the human antagonist trying to get back at him, and how this furthermore affects Mr. Fox's friends, family, and world around him. Firstly, what makes this film great is the shot composition. Wes Anderson, the director, is kind of insane. If you have seen any of his movies, you will know that this man takes composition to an absolute extreme. Every shot is composed more like a painting than a traditional film shot. This man takes the rule of thirds and pushes it to an absolute limit. Unlike Alpha and Omega, where every shot is visually generic or just ripping off of something else, Fantastic Mr. Fox never has a boring or drab scene. Hell, it doesn't even have a boring or drab shot. This film is just that hyper-focused on composition. This is furthermore aided by the fact that this film is indeed stop motion. This results in one of the most unique looking animated films of all time. A film that is only rivaled by Anderson's own Isle of Dogs. Look at Alpha and Omega, all this shit looks the same. It's all plastic looking green, browns, and blues, with rarely any actual variety. But in Fantastic Mr. Fox, I remember the tree, I remember the sewers, I remember the underground. The colors are warm, they're consistent yet at the same time vibrant. Rarely any scene looks out of place, and yet it all looks unique. What also makes this film great is the writing. Unlike Alpha and Omega, which relies on juvenile humor and a lot of tropes, Fantastic Mr. Fox not only makes fun of its own tropes, but has fantastic dialogue and fantastic comedic timing. A lot of the jokes in this film are very blink and you'll miss it. There is quite a bit of adult humor in this film, but it's not sex joke haha funny. Rather, the jokes are based on subtle, dark comedy and actual comedic wit and timing, as well as being contextual to the story.
Honey, I'm 7 non-Fox years old now. My father died at 7.5. I don't want to live in a hole anymore.
The humor reminds me quite a bit of the Lego Movie, actually, which is the greatest animated film ever made, no cap. And I wouldn't be surprised if that movie was inspired by Fantastic Mr. Fox, at least partially. You see, Alpha and Omega relies on very cheap child humor. Even the adult jokes are incredibly obvious. And in the end, it's just not funny. But Fantastic Mr. Fox, that film is poggers and funny. There's even a dance number, just like in Alpha and Omega. But for one thing, the song actually has lyrics. For another thing, the song's actually good. And for another thing, it makes way for an actually funny payoff.
What are you singing, Petey?
Just making it up as I went along, really.
That's just weak songwriting. You wrote a bad song, Petey.
I'm feeling a light to decent 3.
Speaking of the dialogue, it's surprisingly amazing, aside from just the comedy. It's very snappy and witty and smart dialogue. And it also feels so human despite being about, you know, animals. Characters express themselves very subtly, without outright saying how they feel. The dialogue really doesn't feel like a kid's movie, it feels like a grown adult movie. And that's why it's, dare I say, fantastic. This is heightened by the superb voice acting. I haven't heard voice acting this human since The Last of Us, which is a very good thing. Especially George Clooney, he fucking kills the role.
Fine.
Oh my God. You know what?
He pulls off cool and confident, yet going through a midlife crisis really well. The subplot with Ash and Christopherson is also really great. Ash, of course, being the son of Mr. Fox, who is jealous of Mr. Fox's nephew, Christopherson. These subplots tie into the family very well. And while the plot itself is very simple, the way it unfolds isn't. I fully expected a dumb fucking love triangle, and it just never happened. If anything, the film made fun of it.
Get out of here, Agnes. I need to have a private word with Christopherson.
Wait, just a minute. She doesn't.
I don't mind. I'm not even talking.
Overall, I loved this movie. This was a great watch, and I do not regret watching it at all. I'm surprised I never saw this movie earlier, and I kind of feel ashamed that I haven't. It's a unique and creative experience that I will never forget, and I've already watched it twice. I bought this film via the Criterion Collection because I'm extremely pretentious, and I would recommend that version. It is, in my opinion, the best version. Criterion does an amazing job with film restoration and preservation, and I mean, come on, the box art is just way fucking better. The film's also available on Disney Plus if you have that. I also recommend the director's other films. Wes Anderson is a fantastic director and, in my opinion, one of the best of the decade, if not of our generation. The Grand Budapest Hotel also has a Criterion Blu-ray, which is something I am definitely getting at some point. But watch this movie. Overall, I find it quite funny how a quote-unquote furry movie can be so engaging to me, even though apparently I hate Alpha and Omega for that very reason. I honestly don't think it comes down to whether something is a furry movie or not. Obviously, I'll make jokes about it, but honest to God, aside from my clearly ironic jokes, I really don't care. I do find it funny that people will have a mental breakdown on DeviantArt because I make a couple of furry jokes on the internet, and yet I'm also the very same person who bought a Criterion of Fantastic Mr. Fox. I just think it's funny to think about. Basically, you do you, I don't care what you do, but furry or not, you should watch Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's the film that Alpha and Omega wishes it could be. A funny, witty commentary on midlife crises. I also made this video because Alpha and Omega 6 might take a while. Same for my upcoming Postal movie review.
All that rumors out that my movies are financed with Nazi gold, and what should I say? It's true.
And if you couldn't tell from the 8K quality footage and the watermarks, this was a much more easier video to make, so that way I could spend more time with the family for the holidays. I also wanted to talk about an actually good movie for once, because man, I'm going into a deep crock of shit next time. Overall, I highly recommend this movie, and Wes Anderson should absolutely kiss me on the mouth. Please, Wes, baby, have sex with me.
Fuck you in the lanes you came with. Me and you ain't on the same shit. You ain't in my lane, bitch. Nah, throw that shit in fifth. Rollie on my wrist. Ay, baby, you a star. I'm my only wish. I'm counting blue hundreds. I'm too money. Ay, and my little bitch, she too lovely. Yeah, hanging up and calling me right back. Ay, baby, why you calling me like that? Yeah, getting high with the seat laid back. Baby, gon' relax, yeah. Hey, they don't know the half, yeah. No matter what happened, I got your back. Baby, that's the facts, yeah. That's the facts, yeah.
Also, if you plan on getting into Criterion, avoid this film. Trust me, you'll thank me later.